Douglas Bloch. I'm an author and depression survivor. Welcome to your Depression Recovery channel, where each week we talk about practical tools and coping strategies for healing from depression and anxiety. As many of you may know, I've introduced a series on this channel called Back from the Brink, in which I interview former clients and current clients about their journey through depression recovery. Recently, I thought it would be interesting if somebody interviewed me about my journey, especially my recent episode from 2015 to 16, in which I went through some pretty dark places. I decided to ask my friend Noah to do the interview because he used to be in my group, we're friends, and he has his own excellent channel where he shows his many good videos. So I asked him to interview me. He did so, he posted it on his own channel, and now he's given me permission to upload it to my channel. A couple of things I want to share before we watch this video. A lot of what I say, I've already said before on previous videos, but because of the interview format, I think you'll get a new perspective on my journey. A second thing is that Noah and I became so engaged in our conversation, before I knew it, 23 minutes had passed compared to the regular 5 minutes of my own video. Hopefully when you watch this video, you will also be engaged and the 23 minutes will go quickly. If, however, you want to watch it in small pieces, feel free to stop whenever you want and pick up the video at a later time. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my interview with Noah on my recovery from depression.
What's going on, guys? No, just checking in with another video. Today I have a very special guest with me. He has been featured on the channel. This is none other than Douglas Bloch. He's a counselor, he's an author, he's a good friend of mine. He helped me through my depressive episode. He continues to be a source of support for me. And I just want to welcome him back. He has a lot to share right now about a recent depressive episode that I sort of let you guys know a little bit about. He was hospitalized, he did some ECT, he's going to talk about his experience and how he's doing right now. He's also the author of a book called Healing from Depression, 12 Weeks to a Better Mood, or the original book, When Going Through Hell, Don't Stop. All links in the description. I read them both when I was hospitalized. They made a big difference for me. Douglas, why don't you go ahead and say hi again.
Hello.
Awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and just ask you some questions and catch up. A lot of people have actually been asking me how you've been doing, and I've been letting them know you've been okay, but it's going to be good to give them the real scoop. So let's go back to the beginning. How did this most recent episode for you start?
Well, it began the way all of my other episodes have begun, and that's with a personal loss. And what happened was, in 2014, I was going through a grieving process. I was doing okay. I was functioning maybe at 60-70% of my capacity.
Sure.
Life was not fun, but I wasn't crashed. And then what happened was, in January 13, 2015, I made a really dumb mistake. I took some of my wife's Lexapro. That's an SSRI antidepressant. I took it because many of my group members had taken it, and they said no side effects. It was a really good medicine. And I only took 10 milligrams, which is a starting dose. I took it 2 days in a row.
Right.
But it was enough to create this incredible anxiety and agitation in me that was very similar to the episode I had in 96, 97.
Which was the focal point of your book.
Right, When Going Through Hell, Don't Stop.
Right, and if I'm not mistaken, didn't that sort of get catapulted from being a minor to moderate depressive condition to something severe?
Yeah, and I took Effexor, which is another SSRI. It's actually an SNRI, but anyway, it's one of the modern drugs.
Right.
And it also catapulted me. So I saw the psychiatrist in 2015. I said, I don't know what's going on. And he said, well, you're bipolar too. I said, no, I'm a depressive. He said, you're bipolar too, because people who are bipolar, when they take these SSRI antidepressants, it launches them into this agitation, which he called a dysphoric mania. You think of mania as something where you're jumping up and down high as a kite and doing all these things.
Right.
Well, the word dysphoric means it's the opposite of euphoric. It means down, depressed.
Sure.
So you're depressed, but you're agitated at the same time. So he said, I'm not going to give you any of these antidepressants again. It's going to make you worse. So he put me on what are called mood stabilizers.
Right.
Lithium and something called Lamictal. Now, while they did take the anxiety away, I saw him, by the way, in May, about a year ago. The depression still remained. And even though lithium has an antidepressant effect, even though Lamictal does, it really didn't do squat. So for the summer and fall, I kind of limped along, doing my best.
Mm-hmm.
Then in December, I got a new psychiatrist, and she went ahead and took me off lithium and Lamictal and kind of fussed with my medications, and I got really, really bad, and I started to think of suicide. You know what that's like, right?
I do.
You've been there.
Mm-hmm.
and is the only way to end it. There's a phrase that some of my suicidal clients have said, I just want to stop the pain.
Right.
That's what it's about. And when my friends and my partner heard this, I said, Douglas is not safe. And so they checked me into the hospital on January 5th of this year.
So at this point now you're back in the hospital. I'm imagining you're distraught, you're stressed. This is the first major breakdown you've had in over a decade, right?
19 years.
And yes, in 19 years. It's so that I can't imagine how stressful that was for you. I mean, as someone who constantly is fearful of another episode beginning, I know it can be really heartbreaking. So what happened in the hospital?
Let me describe a typical day.
Sure.
I was roused out of bed at 7:45 in the morning. For being a late sleeper, this was torture in itself.
Yeah.
I stumbled into the day room where breakfast was served, and as you know, there's a theory about hospital food being bad. This was no exception.
I actually, as you know, I was at this exact same hospital during my...
You were at St. Vincent's?
St. Vincent.
Oh my God.
Same floor. I was one room away from your room.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. For any of my viewers who don't know that, I was put on psychiatric hold for suicidal ideations back in 2011.
11, right.
Yeah. So it's so good to connect with you on this.
Right.
This
So
awesome
yeah, I didn't
topic.
realize you were in the room next door. Anyway, as you remember, the breakfasts were really bad.
Sure. It's like airplane food.
Yeah, airplane food, and the scrambled eggs tasted like mud. How can you mess up scrambled eggs?
I don't know.
So they did.
They did.
And there were no hard-boiled eggs,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So after breakfast, the day started about 8 o'clock, and we had a series of groups, if you remember,
I do.
on emotional regulation, distress tolerance, goal setting.
Do we have art therapy as well?
Yeah, definitely art therapy. By far my favorite.
Yeah.
My favorite group, because you actually did something with your hands.
Right.
This bracelet here,
Yeah.
made at St. Vincent's Hospital. My souvenir.
I didn't realize.
Art therapy. So they were good. They kept me busy, kept my thoughts off myself. But there was one major problem, that was you couldn't leave. It was a locked ward.
Right.
So there was no way to exercise.
Right. You
They
end
had-
up just walking.
Yeah, there was a you could laps around the hospital. And I
Right.
think they said 22 equals 1 mile. That was it.
Yep.
No, you couldn't sweat or really, perspire, which is really what gets the endorphins going.
Sure.
But you could walk around the floor.
Yeah.
The other annoying thing is that the overhead lighting, there was no lamps like we see here.
Right.
That's because they thought if there was a lamp in the room, people would use it to strangle themselves.
Right.
Crazy, huh?
I mean, it's understandable.
Yeah, and-
Like,
but
they took
we-
my
but-
shoelaces when I got there as well.
Right, and not only that, my iPhone charger,
Yeah.
they took that from me.
Yeah.
So whenever I needed to charge my iPhone, I would go into a special room and they marked it 538
Right.
from the room I was in,
Right.
and they would put it in the charger they had, and when it was done, they'd call and I'd pick up the phone.
Right.
So everything was really, in a sense, if you're suicidal, it's good not to have the means.
It is. That was one of the main functions of my suicidality. Everything to me looked like a means to end it all. I swear I was that person. I
Right.
thought that with just about everything. So it's like horrible as it was. I guess I understand.
So there were some good things. One, patients were really cool.
Yeah.
When I first volunteered at a hospital when I was 19 years old at New York University, I walked in at a psychiatric ward and I couldn't tell the difference between the patients and the staff.
Right.
I expected lunatics to be jumping up and down and off, hanging on the rafters.
Yeah.
Just this kind of stereotype that people have of crazy people.
Exactly. I had the exact same stereotype.
Yeah.
I went in there assuming that everyone would seem absolutely crazy.
Right. And people were acting just regular.
pretty normal.
Especially depressed people.
Yeah.
And so I made two women friends, and then the staff were really nice.
Right. Well, as you know, a lot of people that work in the mental health field, it's not by accident. Most
Right.
people don't just choose to work in a psychiatric ward. They usually have some experience that
Right.
leads them to have a higher level of compassion.
Right.
For
There's
people
one
like
guy
us,
a nurse who taught yoga. He was very cool.
Yeah.
And the social worker was really nice.
Sure.
And as I said, the art therapist. So I felt cared about.
Good. And you were in a safe environment,
Yeah.
and that was the function. Now, there was another reason you were there specifically.
Oh yeah, to get ECT. I'll
Right.
get into that in a second.
Okay.
Actually, that happened after I got in the hospital. The reason I entered was not to get ECT.
Really?
But it happened just serendipitously that the man who was my psychiatrist knew the woman over at Oregon's OHSU
Uh-huh.
who was the head ECT gal. And I told him I'd been evaluated back in November. So he called her up and he set the whole thing up.
Wow, I didn't
It
realize
just
that.
happened, spontaneously. One of their blessing was that I had a lot of visitors, you
You did.
included.
Yes, me
you
included.
probably came once or twice.
I think twice,
You
yeah.
came twice. Some of the people came actually, my goddaughter came 4 times.
Wow, good.
So
Well, this whole channel came with you for one of them. I don't know if you remember, but I filmed my visit with you.
Really?
The whole thing. It's on my channel.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
I
it's
have to
got
look for
thousands
it.
and thousands of views, and it's just flooded with words of encouragement to you.
Really?
Yeah.
You'll have to show me how to get to it.
Yeah, I will.
Anyway, so yeah, I had 27 visitors.
All-time record, right?
All time. They said no one has ever had as many visitors, Douglas. So, you know, at the end of A Wonderful Life, where they have all of Jimmy Stewart's friends coming and paying off this $8,000 debt he had because he and his associates had lost all this money.
Yeah.
What's his name? What's his name? Oh, the Scrooge guy in the film had stolen. Anyway, all his friends came out of the woodwork to help him out, and that's what I felt about me.
Good.
That I had all this support.
Sure. You do.
It was very encouraging.
It is.
It was tremendously encouraging. It was the one thing I had to be grateful for.
Yeah.
Okay, so you asked about ECT.
The elephant in the room. ECT. A lot of people still go back to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with Jack Nicholson in terms of what they perceive ECT and that treatment to be. It sounds pretty scary when you conceptualize it without having any background information on it. Now, we're in a very modern day. You did ECT. It was sort of like a last-ditch effort for you. You've been in treatment-resistant depression for a long time. I was nervous for you. I was excited for the potential for it to work. What was your experience with ECT?
Well, first of all, one of the reasons that people really are kind of scared about it is that when you think about it, they are inducing a grand mal seizure into the brain.
Right.
That's pretty heavy stuff.
That's
pretty invasive.
It is. It's very invasive.
And I just last Sunday went on something called the NAMI Walk, National Alliance on Mental Illness. Every year they hold a walk in Portland.
I've been on
other
that
cities,
walk twice with you.
to raise awareness for mental health. And I was only about maybe 50 yards into the walk when the guy was standing, in the walkway holding up a sign that says ECT causes brain damage.
Jeez.
So there's a lot of people out there who are still really down on it.
Right.
It turns out that the major problem is memory loss. You know those 27 visitors I talked to you about?
Yeah.
I only remembered about 12 or 13.
Yeah, you didn't remember that I visited you.
Yeah, I did?
No, not well. We spoke on the phone about 2 months ago, and you were catching up with me on what's been going on with you, and you were letting me know that you've been in the hospital and then you've done ECT, and you had no memory that I'd come to see you twice.
Unbelievable.
You didn't remember that I'd gotten married and stuff like that.
That's the major side effect.
It is a major side effect.
Anyway, so somehow it works.
Right.
People don't know why it works. People don't know what happens. The metaphor I use and other people use is called rebooting the brain.
Right.
Kind of like you reboot a computer when it's stuck.
Sure.
Turn it on and off, and somehow it resets itself.
Right.
Well, that's what they think happens with the brain. So the procedure is pretty straightforward. I think the first one I had was January 11th. I had to take a bus from St. Vincent's over to OHSU, Oregon Health Sciences University, where it was done. I went into a room, a hospital room, and they had me lie down on a bed.
Right.
And then soon the nurse came and put an IV.
So you did have general anesthesia, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
They knock you out.
They knock you out.
You don't feel a thing.
Sure.
Then they gave me a muscle relaxant so my body wouldn't shake.
Right.
Jack Nicholson's did.
Right.
And they actually did that while I was knocked out. So the nurse was saying, this may feel a little bit warm, this as the anesthesia goes into your veins.
Mm-hmm.
And bingo! The next thing I know, I'm awake.
Right.
And it turned out that the electrical impulse, only lasts about a half a second. The seizure is about between 30 and 45 seconds.
Wow.
And that's it. The whole thing is 10 minutes because the anesthesia only knocks you out for 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So you wake up. It's not even like going to the dentist. It's a lot shorter.
Right.
A lot less painful.
Right.
Now, one thing did happen on my second ECT is that when I woke up, I was totally disoriented. I didn't know where I was, who brought me here. I didn't recognize the people around me.
Yeah, I spoke to you on the phone, and you seemed very scared, very upset,
very
agitated.
scared and very agitated. And then what happened is the day wore on, that wore off. So some sessions I awoke from the anesthesia agitated, and some sessions I didn't.
Must have been scary.
Well, once I had gone through it once, I kind of knew, it was going to pass.
Right.
But each time I went through the disorientation, it felt like a new orientation.
Of course.
Disorientation.
Of course.
So that was the most difficult part.
Well, and if I recall correctly, we spoke in the beginning, of course, and then in the middle of your treatments, you ended up having 8.
8, good memory.
Thank you. And in around 4 or 5, if I recall correctly, you didn't think it was helping.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I've been in heavy contact with you. I knew your disposition before ECT. It was slow, it was droll, it was depressed, melancholy, apathetic, hopeless, whatever. Put any descriptive term, you fit every single cliche of major depressive disorder, and you sounded just about the same midway through. What was that like?
I was writing in my notebook. I had a journal they gave me. I still feel suicidal. I still feel, out of it. What's going on? How come it's not working?
Right.
And after the 8th treatment, which is a Friday, I was going to get 3 final treatments because it's between 9 and 12, the course. But somehow on Saturday, I woke up and they discharged me from the hospital. I was really upset.
Sure.
Because I wanted to get my money's worth, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I went out on Saturday. On Monday, 2 days later, I went up to OHSU as an outpatient. But I did something really stupid. I took Lamictal, which is an anticonvulsant. Right. The medication I was on before, on Sunday. And when the psychiatrist heard about it on Monday, she said, "No, we're canceling because if you took an anticonvulsant and we're trying to put you into a convulsion, it's gonna tone down the convulsion. And ECT won't work."
Right.
And then she wouldn't see me again. So that was it.
That was it.
8. So what happened was about a week after I was discharged from the hospital, I started the Providence outpatient program, kind of like the hospital groups. And I started to feel better. I don't know why or how. It's almost like the ECT had a delayed reaction. Because while I was getting it, I still felt crummy. Right. But every week when I was in this outpatient program, I felt better and better. Until, now it's in May of 2016. I'm kind of feeling like my old self again.
Right, and you're acting like your old self. And I think that is something I would want to point out more than anything from an outside perspective looking in. And I think it's really important for people to keep this in mind when they're depressed. Sometimes you can't tell you are doing better, but other people can tell based on your disposition, your facial expressions, the tone of voice, stuff like that. And to that effect, so you sounded different, after you had completed your ECT from before. And I remember you telling me, I'm not entirely sure if I'm feeling better. I think I might be. And for me, it was like extremely obvious. I was like, oh no, you sound better. Like I spoke to you on the phone. You often would repeat the same things over and over and over again. And you would talk slow. You just sounded defeated and gone, like you weren't there. Post ECT Doug was already cognitively way different, way sharper. And then you just had some umph in your voice. So it definitely did something, and it was really fun to watch you realize it, because I think there's a moment of doubt. And, there certainly usually is a moment of doubt for a lot of people when they first start to come out of an episode. You're like, is this really happening? Right. So I don't know, I thought that was really special. So we're through the ECT. You are now starting to re-experience your life again as a mentally stable person, something that, based on how many times you told me you didn't think was possible possible in spite of yourself, right? Which I think is one of the cool things about mood disorders.
One of the hallmarks of depression is you feel when you're in it, you'll never get out of it.
Right, and no one is immune to that feeling, not a depression counselor, author, not a former survivor, nobody. That's just how powerful and potent it is. I remember being taken back by how vocal you were, that you weren't going to get better. I was like, you have always been a staple for my mental health, like, oh, there's always Douglas. So to see you go through it was really scary, because, you're supposed to be infallible. Right. And then it hit you, and it just reminded me, like, no one is permanently protected. You have to mind your lifestyle and your habits and your diet and everything that plays a part in depression. But anyway, I digress. What did you learn from this last breakdown that you had after coming out of it?
Well, I'm a believer that we learn from every experience. Sure. But especially the really bad ones. Yeah. Because I don't know if I made a video with you about it. I think we talked about blessings in disguise. Yeah, we did. We made a video back in 2014 about that. It's on your channel, on my channel. Yeah, there were blessings in disguise. The first was I relearned the wisdom of 4 words that anybody who's super depressed should tell themselves. This too shall pass.
Yeah, the old adage from a 12-step program.
The old adage from a 12-step program, and it's true, and true. You never think you're going to come out of it. You think you're there forever. You become suicidal because it won't change. But the only thing that is constant in the universe is change. Right. And the Buddhists say everything is impermanent. Things arise, they stay for a while, and they pass away. Right. So what I would recommend the viewers do is take the phrase, this too shall pass, write it out on a 3x5 card, make it into an affirmation, say it out loud, record it on your iPhone or your recording device, play it back for yourself. This too shall pass, this too shall pass, this too shall pass. a very, very powerful phrase when you're in despair.
Absolutely.
And have other people repeat it to you.
Of course.
The second lesson and blessing I learned, I mentioned earlier, is that I learned that I was truly loved. I knew that from my partner and my goddaughter, and my godson. But when all these people showed up, it really hit me. People, took the time to visit this hospital.
And a lot of people feel like when you are really depressed. I mean, I was surrounded by love. Even I felt alone, and you feel like maybe the world would be better off without you. What's the point?
Mm-hmm.
I think we underestimate the butterfly effect that we can have on other people, and the love that they'll show us when we're in need. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, I think we all have this loving energy around us. And sometimes when we're in dire straits, it will come in ways we don't expect. The third thing I learned was about ECT. I done a video called "Rebooting the Brain with ECT."
Now, and that was before you'd ever done ECT.
Yeah, this is in 2014. Now my channel doesn't get nearly the hits that yours does. But this video has had 10,000 people view it.
Wow.
So for me, that's a huge amount.
No, that's a huge amount of people.
I'm usually in around the 1,000 range. But here's the irony. I had done this video. I talked about ECT, rebooting the brain.
Right.
But I never thought it would happen to me.
Of course.
And so I didn't really have the direct experience of knowing this.
No, you did.
I just supposed it. I'd heard other people talk about it. It was all hypothetical.
Right.
Now it's no longer hypothetical.
No.
I've experienced
You've
the darn
experienced
thing.
it, yeah.
And I can even say more than ever that the video I made in 2014 is true.
It's accurate.
And that I would recommend to anybody out there, if you know someone who's at the end of their rope, if you know someone who's suicidally depressed, if no antidepressants have worked, if no other treatment has worked, this is worth the try.
It's an option.
It's not.
It's a legitimate option.
The only thing you're going to lose is maybe your short-term memory, but only at the time of getting the ECT. I remember clearly everything that happened before I went in the hospital, everything that happened after I was discharged from the hospital. It's only in between, and I sometimes have a little cloudy memory. And there's a lot of things I do remember very clearly, but not everything.
Right.
So I appreciate your letting me share this experience.
Of course.
I hope your viewers will benefit from it, as they have all the things you put on the channel.
Of course.
I want to close. I want to read some things that I think are so important. I want to read them. I probably will put them in my next ebook. So here's what it says.
Sure.
I'd like to close by repeating what I've said in my talks and workshops, as well as in my books. Never give up, never give up, never give up, never give up. As the Buddha said, our greatest glory is not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. There is help, there is recovery, there is healing. Do you agree?
I agree.
Help, recovery, and healing.
I like that.
People and God will help us. There is recovery, and there is healing of the condition. Now, sometimes it takes a lot of patience and sometimes a little bit of luck, but depression is a treatable disease.
Yes.
Every single person who I've had in my group has eventually gotten better, including you.
Including me.
Including you. Even though you have your dips now, but they don't stay.
No.
Sometimes, as I said, it takes a lot of patience, sometimes luck, but it is treatable. It may take medication, may take ECT prayer, or just time itself to lift the black cloud of depression and start you on the road to recovery. So keep the faith. Help is on the way, and as they say in AA, don't give up 5 minutes before the miracle.
It's awesome. It's beautiful.
That's my message.
That's your message, and that's a beautiful message. I just want to tell you, it's really awesome to see the color back in your face, the enthusiasm back in your voice. This is the Doug that led our groups. This is the Doug that ushered me through my depressive episode. I'm so happy for you that you have reconnected with that after such a tumultuous, long bout with yet another major depressive episode. So guys, please show Doug a lot of love in the comment section, and please be aware that Doug has his own channel. He's been making videos for years now. Great stuff, all about mental health recovery and support, sharing not only his clinical experience, but his personal experience. Link in the description. Subscribe to his channel. Learn from him. Show him some love. Thank you for watching this video.
It's called, by the way, if you type in YouTube, you just type in healing depression, all one word.
Got it.
Take you to the channel.
So you can type in healing depression. So if you want to search his channel, it's just healing depression. Put it on YouTube, you'll find it. But I'm going to put a link, first link in the description box of this video. Click on that. Subscribe to his channel. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. I appreciate you. Doug appreciates you. Doug, thanks for being on the channel today.
You're welcome.
And we'll make another video series soon.
Glad to be here.
All right. Peace.